Welcome to Protagonist Pub. My name is Tammy, and this is where characters gather. So it is Sunday. I'm recording a day early again because the house is being painted this week. Another noisy week, but that's okay. So let's do some housekeeping first. If you are new here, welcome. I'm glad you're here. I hope you find something you want to read. And I hope you leave comments and suggest books for me because I'm always looking for something new. If you hear noise in the background, Dave is making coffee and breakfast and going downstairs. So, life in a busy household. Next housekeeping item. My brain needs a little bit of a break. So, I think the number of videos for August on a weekly basis is going to go down by at least one a week. And I am not sure. I will post on Mondays, and I'm not sure when that second video will post. On what day in August. I know this week it will post on Tuesday because it's a launch video for Adrift, which I'll talk about here in a minute. But other than that, I'm not sure what day they'll post. Probably Thursday or Friday. We shall see. I need to get some writing done, and as you know, if you do booktube, editing takes time, and creatively my brain needs a little bit of a break, so it's going to take a break in the month of August, and I'm fine with that. We all need to give ourselves grace to say, I need to slow down a little bit, and I will pick things back up, and that's this moment for me. So, housekeeping. Next, Adrift launches on Tuesday. I'm on the launch team. I'm very excited. I will share it all with you. My full review of Drift, video review, will come out on Tuesday morning. I will have links to Rhonda. My written review for Adrift is already out. I will link that in the description box down below. I love this book. You all know that already. So that will release on Tuesday this week. And I think that's it for housekeeping. So let's talk about what I read this week. It was a decent reading week. I've read 3 books as of this video. I have DNF'd 1 book. I'm going to talk about the DNF first. It was a NetGalley arc. They did release this week. That was the Love Script by Toni Shiloh. I know my reaction to this book is very different than most people's. I DNF this book a third of the way through, which is well beyond my 50-page cutoff for a book to grab and hold my attention. However, this book did not work for me. It did not work for me as characters. It did not work for me on the faith level. It did not work for me on people I could relate to. And I found it incredibly unrealistic and unbelievable. When the good Lord taps you on the shoulder and says, you don't need to read anymore, you listen to that tap on your shoulder and you stop reading. And that is very much what happened to me this week with the Love Script. I was truly bothered, like truly bothered. And so I set it aside. I understand that most of you watching this will have read the love script and loved it and loved Toni Shiloh as an author. But we all can't like the same books and can't love the same authors. We all have individual reading tastes and preferences. In this case, it didn't work for me, and that's fine. I don't feel bad for that. If you enjoyed the love script, I'm happy for you. So that was the love script. Everything else this week, I finished. So let's talk about my Kindle reads first. First up was Death at a Scottish Wedding by Lucy Connelly. This was the second of the CIO Mysteries or Scottish Mysteries? I will put the correct series name right here. This was a NetGalley arc. It releases in January of 24. It is the sophomore novel in the series, and it was enjoyable. It was not as good as the first. It really suffered from sophomore novel issues for me. So the setup is Amelia and pretty much all of her friends go to Ewan's castle for Angie's wedding. And a blizzard happens. Everybody's snowed into the castle. They can't get out. They can't get in. There's no communication. And a murder happens. And things transpire from there. The mystery part was good. Some of the charm from the first book is missing. So Tommy, who is the autistic side character, is very much absent in this book. He does provide a clue, but how he provided that clue was very forced. And the book, the series, in my opinion, needs more Tommy in it because it shows the compassion and the extended family of the entire village and their friends and how they all relate and care for Tommy and give his sister a break from being his sole care provider. And that was missing in this book. And I'm not sure why, but it was missing, and it was sad that it was missing. So the other part of the book that didn't really work for me very well was there are lots of twists and turns in the plot and plenty of red herrings. And I figured out early on who one of the bad guys was. It was very obvious. But the other antagonist just appeared out of the blue. And I'm not so fond of that. You kind of knew that the other antagonist was a potential, but there wasn't enough interaction to justify that antagonist being the perpetrator. So, book 3 will happen sometime in, I would imagine, late 2024, early 2025. And at that point, I will decide after book 3 if I'm continuing the series. So, it wasn't horrible. It wasn't great. Would I recommend you read it if you enjoyed the first one, which was An American in Scotland? I don't see why not. The Scottish Wedding was fun and very much reminds me of Irish weddings, but it lacks some of the charm a lot of the charm of the first book. So, judge for yourself. Next up, I read Cold Light of Day by Elizabeth Goddard. This is my first Elizabeth Goddard book. It is romantic suspense. It is the first book in a series, and I will put the series name down below. I believe I have the arc for the second book on my NetGalley list. I will have to check. This was a very gripping first chapter. Guy's hiking through the forest to get to his uncle's cabin, which is at a remote Alaskan village. He sees a lady being murdered, and then he's on the run for his life. Gets you from the beginning. However, I didn't love this book. I really didn't. I didn't dislike the book, but I didn't love the book. The pacing is a little off for me. There's never a lull in the action. It's really just one giant, prolonged threat. And unfortunately, the male and female leads of the story fall in love by the end. And here's where my problem comes in. They sort of kind of maybe a little bit know each other before the threat happens. And then once the threat happens, they get to know each other under stressful, threatening, life-endangering circumstances and somehow fall in love. I'm sorry, but you can develop romantic feelings for someone in those circumstances, but I find it incredibly unrealistic that you fall in love for any length of time when you're under duress. This is Christian romantic suspense. There is gentle, everyday faith in it. It is... the faith part is good. I have no objection to the faith part. It's the insta love thing that just the insta love and the uneven, constant threat pacing that just irritated me a lot. It irritated me a lot. Not enough that I put the book down, but not enough that if I didn't have the arc that I would. It irritated me enough that if I didn't have the arc for book 2, I don't think I would continue the series. So we will see how book 2 goes when I pick up the arc. So those were my electronic reads for the week. I then picked up Markmaker by Mary Jessica Woods. This is published by Chrism Press. It is Catholic Christian science fiction. That's what it's marketed as, is science fiction. So I finished this book yesterday morning about this time. I am still thinking about what to say about this book. I enjoyed it. It has made me think. I am still thinking. And I don't know what I'm thinking. That God's honest truth. I do not know what to think. It tells the story of Mary Cowell, who is a Markmaker for his clan on their, it's a generational ship. So they've had to flee their planet. They fled their planet 1,000 years ago, roughly. 1,000,000 people live on his generational ship. There are other generational ships that we hear about a little bit in the book, but there is no interaction with those other ships. Multiple clans live on the ship, and it's a caste system. The lower castes do the more menial tasks, and Marikal is in the Syrinx clan, and they are one of the higher tier castes, and it is the custom of their people that they are tattooed throughout their life, and those tattoos tell the story of their life. So, for instance, when you're born, you get a tattoo that initiates you into the clan, and your mother gets a tattoo that says that she bore a son or a daughter, and that tattooing occurs throughout your life. And if you do something that is deemed dishonorable, you can be exiled from the rest of the ship and sent to the underbelly, and you can never return topside. And so Marikal is one of the artists that does tattooing, and he is a master tattooer. And one day, and this happens before the book starts, he is called upon to do an exile tattoo. Turns out he knows the man. He finds it very unbelievable that he is truly guilty of what he is accused of. But he's also scared, and he doesn't speak up, and he goes through with the tattoo. And as a form of repentance, and this still all begins to occur before the book ever starts, he starts going into the underbelly to help give tattoos to the exiles to mark, the birth of their children, or, to help. It's easing his conscience. He thinks he's doing good. He's trying to search for the man he believes he mistattooed. So that's the setup to the book. The story was very good. I don't know that I would call this science fiction. And yes, it takes place in space. Yes, it's an alien race. Yes, they live on a spaceship, and they're fighting a war to regain their home planet. So there are elements of science fiction. There are also elements of fantasy. And I don't want to discuss those because it does contain spoilers for the book. But it doesn't fit well in either of those categories, in my opinion. It's very reminiscent of Dune, but it's not at the same time. In Dune, you see a lot more of the politics, and there's significantly more action in Dune. Markmaker, there are politics, but he's on the periphery looking in, not realizing that his inaction in politics is still driving politics. And there's very little action in this book until the last 20%. And that's not a bad thing. This is really a character study on what on what it means to be a functioning member of society, and what are your obligations to those in that society. And I'm struggling to find, I'm struggling to find why this is Catholic science fiction, and I'm struggling to find why this is Christian science fiction. Now, there may be a second book, it may be a whole series, and it may be coming in later books, but in this book, either I am not intelligent enough to have found it, or I need to read someone else's summary to find it, but I didn't. It is very possible that this is a political commentary on the state of the Catholic Church, and or it's a political commentary on the state of the United States. I haven't made up my mind. As you can tell, I'm conflicted. I enjoyed this book very much, but I don't know how to classify it, and I don't know to whom I would necessarily recommend it. If you like science fiction, it isn't very science fiction-y. If you like fantasy, it isn't very fantasy. If you like character studies that combine elements of lots of different things, this is much more a character study of one young man and his relationship to his clan, his overall people, his obligations. See, as you can tell, I'm struggling. I have not written the written review for this. I don't know. That's the best I can say. Is this honestly at this precise moment in time, I don't know. That's the best I can say. I would, however, say if you're even remotely curious, pick it up. It's an excellent read. It's a debut novel. There are threads in there that I hope are continued in the second book. So, okay. Now that you heard my very confused ramblings, what am I currently reading? I am currently working on The Adventures of Tom Bombadil. It's going well. They're beautifully written. It's Tolkien, not much to say at the moment. I did pick up A Rogue's Company by Alison Montclair, book 3 in the Sparks and Bainbridge series. I'm not very far. It's not floating my boat at the moment. I'm not sure if I'm going to return it and pick it up later. Time will tell. I did read the first chapter in The Killing Tide by Danny Petrie. As you know, this is on my August pile. I'm very interested in picking this up very, very, very soon. So, those are my thoughts for the week. What did you read this week? Did you find something interesting? If you did, please leave a comment down below, like and subscribe, and I will see you here next time at the Protagonist Pub.